Go back now to listen to Nigel Farage with his newest MP, Andrew Rosindell.
Used to do so.
So I only ever got involved in politics because I love my country, and it was Margaret Thatcher that inspired me to join the Conservative Party at the age of 14. So for me, giving away His Majesty's territories to a foreign country, which is denying the Chagossian people their right of self-determination, at the same time undermining our British security and paying billions of pounds for doing so, when sadly it was a Conservative government that started this whole policy in the first place. I just feel ashamed, and it's a total failure of the British state to protect British interests. The Conservative Party and the Labour Party have played a part in this, and I can't put my name to it ever, and I repudiate what has happened, and that's one of the reasons I decided this weekend to join Nigel and Reform UK. This man has to be our next Prime Minister, because our country needs reform, it needs change, and we need to rescue our nation from the calamity of this socialist government.
Very good. Questions?
Mr Farage, can I ask you firstly, on Greenland, do you think that Donald Trump is bluffing when he talks about a tariff for nations such as the UK? And Mr Rosindell, can I ask you, have any Conservative MPs since your defection reached out and are seeking your counsel on potentially doing the same?
Whether Trump's bluffing or not is always difficult to tell, but to use economic threats against the country that's been considered to be your closest ally for over 100 years is not the kind of thing we would expect. It's wrong, it's bad, it would be very, very hurtful to us. Now, I think we're in a position where we can negotiate. You know, we're not tied by European Union trade rules. That does give us an advantage in these negotiations, but I would just say this, I'm all for Trump taking out enemies of the West, Maduro, the Iranian regime, but if he falls out with his own allies and leaves America isolated, that would be a very bad place to be. So I'm worried about it, I'm concerned about it. I've always been a supporter of the president since way before he got elected first time, but I will be having some words with the American administration in Davos on Wednesday on this issue. It's wrong.
So I have many, many friends in the Conservative Party, many colleagues, a lot of messages I've had, met a few this morning, and they've all been incredibly kind. They understand why I've done this. I have no malice towards my friends in the Conservative Party. I will say this though, I have argued for months and months and months that we need to unite the right. We need to get rid of this Labour government, and we need to bring people of like mind together to ensure that the next election we get a right-wing government or right-of-centre government in power with Nigel as Prime Minister. And I know that my colleagues, my former Conservative Party colleagues, are welcome to support what I think is a plan to rescue the country. That's what it should be about. It's not about party politics. Actually, the main goal is to rescue Britain, and that's why I've made the decision I have.
I think with Robert Jenrick and with Andrew Rosindell, what you're seeing is the centre-right uniting, because so much of the current parliamentary Conservative Party is one nation, centrist. I mean, frankly, half of them would fit very neatly into the Lib Dems. And when it comes to policy, well, some will argue, well, Kem is now saying all the things, Nigel, that you will agree with. Well, there's some truth in that, but they didn't do any of them in 14 years in power, despite repeated manifesto promises. So it really is an issue of trust. So I believe what we're doing is genuinely uniting the centre-right, and the last few days have been a significant step towards that.
Mr Farage, ITV News. If President Trump levies tariffs over Greenland, should the UK retaliate?
I think to retaliate would probably hurt us even more. We have to negotiate, and it's one area where, with Brexit, we are free to negotiate directly. We did so relatively successfully compared to our European counterparts earlier in the year. And look, we know that Trump does use a degree of bluff. It's part of his negotiating tactic. You can never completely predict what he will do, but no, I don't think reciprocal tariffs at this stage would make any sense at all.
Do you condemn him?
I think he's wrong. I think what he's done is wrong. I don't think you turn on your allies. By the way, I completely understand strategically why Greenland matters so much. But I just said to Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, if Greenland matters because of worries about Russia, worries about China, well, wake up and smell the coffee on Diego Garcia. I mean, being described to me as the most important US military base in the world outside of mainland America. And so they need to wake up and smell the coffee on that one too.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living. And maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind. The more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver, and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
You probably have better contact, better relations with Donald Trump than most people in the House of Commons. Will you pick up the phone and speak to him directly? And Andrew Rosindell, you talked about Margaret Thatcher. Even your office is called Margaret Thatcher House. Do you think she now feel more at home with the UK?
Well, there's little doubt that in the European elections, she did vote UKIP a few years ago. Everyone knows that to be true. Look, we're not in the period of Thatcherism. We're in a different time. She was there at a moment in time to cure the illness of the British economy, above all. The set of social problems we've got now are far worse, actually, than anything she faced back in 1979.
And on Donald Trump, would you speak to him directly?
I will be going to USA House in Davos on Wednesday, and I'll be meeting members of the administration. And I will say very clearly what I've just said. This is not the way to treat your best friends. This is not the way to get support. I'd love to see a successful economic partnership between Greenland and America. And I hope and pray that's where we end up.
Did you watch Keir Starmer's speech this morning?
I did.
What did you make of his message to the president?
Well, what he says in public and maybe what he says in private are two different things. So let's see. I felt the Prime Minister's instinctive response to say this was completely wrong was actually the correct thing to say. But let's see how tough we can be. Let's see how good a negotiator he is. Some of the evidence when it comes to the EU reset and the Chagos deal is our Prime Minister is not a born negotiator, and that would be my concern. Thank you. Any more?
So on Margaret Thatcher, well, I have to say, Nigel, if Margaret Thatcher was here today, you'd be out of a job.
Well, that may be true.
Because there wouldn't be reform and there wouldn't be Conservative, there'd be one united right in this country. Sadly, the Conservative Party's moved away, I think, from the kind of thing she fought for, and we've become too mushy, too centrist, and not radical enough to deal with the serious problems our nation faces. And I think if she was here today, and I would dare not speak for her, but I think she would do what was right for Britain. And if it meant working cross-party to save this country from socialism, that's exactly what she would do.
And how did Kemi Bay not react when you told her you were leaving?
I haven't spoken to Kemi. I wish her all the best. I have no. I do personally. I wish
You hope she has a terrible
Sorry,
time.
I wish her all the best personally. I have no animosity to any of my colleagues, my former colleagues in the Conservative Party, but we have to be realistic. Our country needs change, proper change, not swapping Labour to Conservative and backwards and forwards. It doesn't work. We need something radical, something new, something that will rescue our country. This is the man who's going to do that.
You know, there are two schools of thought here. One is the Kelly Badenoch school of thought, front page, Sunday Telegraph yesterday, Britain isn't broken. And then there's the reform analysis, which is Britain is broken. They want to fiddle with the plumbing. We think we need a brand new boiler and a complete new system. We think the country needs radical change. And unless you recognise how broken it is, you can't begin, it seems to me, to fix it. And that's now the big divide.
Yeah, and Nigel's right. And this is exactly what Robert Jenrick's been arguing.
So that's the latest addition to the reform ranks. Andrew Rosindell MP, who was first elected in 2001, as I said before, the only Conservative gain in that 2001 election in Romford. He had a majority once of 18,500, slipped to 1,500 last time, and he was telling people, Miriam, only last week, he cannot hold his seat with the Conservative Party, so would defect to reform. So this has caused no surprise to Tory HQ.
Well, we're now joined by our political editor, Chris Hope, who's live from Westminster. Chris, good morning. What a week it's been in politics. It already seems a long time since that Robert Jenrick defection, but it was only a few days ago. Obviously, Andrew Rosindell, not such a big name as Robert Jenrick, but as Andrew's just been saying, he has been an MP for an enormous length of time. Do you think the floodgates have now opened in terms of defections from the Conservatives to reform?
Yes, morning Andrew, morning Miriam. I think the day is about 2 hours old and Andrew Rosindell hadn't actually resigned or quit the party until about 13 hours ago. So it's fast, comes at you quite fast, politics. Nowadays, all live on GBNews, of course. Well, this deadline was imposed by that man on screen, Nigel Farage. He said anyone who wants to come across to our party, currently a politician, has until May the 7th or the drawbridge is pulled up. Andrew Rosindell is the first one to respond to that after, of course, Robert Jenrick came across last Thursday. I was struck by some of those remarks there. Andrew Rosindell says about coming back, I wish her all the best, but he hasn't further spoken to her. I think his defection, as Andrew was saying earlier, was one which Westminster had priced in. The Romford seat is split between the Tories and Reform. He has gone towards Reform for quite a few months now. Viewers might remember back at the party conference, the Tory conference back in October, he was the MP who pushed very hard for the party to play the national anthem at the end of its conference. That's where he stands. He wears the Union Jack as a flag, as a proud flag. It is what he believes in. He's a Thatcherite Tory, known as Rosa in Westminster. He's an obvious one. That's 7 Tory MPs. Will we get to 10 by the end of the week? We'll wait and see. You heard there Nigel Farage there. I was really struck by the remarks about the crisis over Greenland in the special relationship. He said there, didn't he, those remarks were wrong, bad and very, very hurtful. He's worried and concerned. He says in Davos on Wednesday, he'll have words with the US administration. He's going to somewhere called US House in Davos. That will be a kind of pavilion constructed for Davos. We know that Donald Trump flies in there on Wednesday with his team, and he'll say to him, or say to his team, this is not the way to treat your best friend. And it goes back to what Andrew was saying earlier. Is it now a risk? Because as of a few hours ago, we were told Keir Starmer is not going to Davos. Hang on, if you're not going, is Nigel Farage now your ambassador? Yeah. Why is he going and you're not going? He's putting himself in place of Keir Starmer by going to Davos. That is not a good look, Prime Minister, I would humbly suggest.
Interesting, Chris, because he's damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't, because he gets a lot of flack for being never here, Keir. But this seems to be one opportunity when he should be going to Davos.
I think
he could do it in a day.
Well, and also there's a meeting of EU leaders in Brussels on Thursday. I think I was lucky enough to be at that press conference earlier. I've never known a more grave press conference with the Prime Minister. It felt extremely, extremely serious, very worrying. I think he met the moment there, and you heard that from Nigel Farage, even one of his real opponents there, saying he thought the remarks by Sir Keir Starmer were correct.
Yeah. All right, Chris.
Fascinating stuff. Thank you, Chris. I'm sure we'll have more on that as the day progresses.